Hands up if you've got a folder on your hard drive called Old Projects or Archive or something more depressing. In my case, it's called Backup. It's a whole pile of stuff dumped in there over the years. And people often think that creatives don't finish projects because of lack of time or motivation. But having worked with dozens of frustrated creatives, I found it's something completely different. And it's not what you'd think. Everyone says it's about time management or motivation or shiny object syndrome, that they've moved on to something else. And I've been there. Like I said, I have a drawer full of half-finished songs and abandoned photos projects and the works. But what I've learned from coaching a whole bunch of creative individuals, people who actually do finish, there's a whole pile of things that you don't understand, a whole pile of false culprits. Usually people blame, I don't have enough time. But people find time to get to the gym. They find time to scroll and doom scroll to oblivion. People say they've lost their motivation. But often I find that people are motivated for the things that truly matter, whether that's they're following through on a TV series or kind of, in my case, getting out to run. I'm training for a marathon. I am motivated to get out and do those runs. And one I hear a lot as well is, I'm a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist too. And I understand that perfectionism can help us get started in a really solid, centered way that helps us move forward. And we aren't prepared to deliver just pure crap. We want something better. But there is definitely a place where it blocks us, but it helps us to get closer to what we want. What I think people often miss in this is that most creatives really start with enthusiasm, verve, and just motivation to make something beautiful. And, they just genuinely get into the process for weeks and months, and they keep going. And then they often hit this point that I call the messy middle. I made a video for it last week. And it's when you get to that 30 to 50% done, you're not seeing much progress, you're getting into a mire of having to maybe learn new techniques, your skills aren't strong enough, and you run out of motivation and energy. And this is really where the problem starts to kind of reveal itself and show what it means. But I think the real reason behind the fact that people get stuck is it's about an identity crisis. At the start of a project, we think, I'm about to become someone. Delivering this means I'm the musician, the photographer, the writer that I dream of being. And when we get started, it feels most of the time like it's validating that. It's validating and confirming that identity. Hey, look, I'm actually doing this thing. I'm making progress. You can see things starting to form and come together. But then when you hit that messy middle, that 30 to 50%, and it gets bogged down and it gets slow and you're not making the progress at the same speed, the imposter syndrome kicks in. And in a lot of cases, we self-sabotage our own projects. And we start to forget about them or move them to the side. And that's why it's easier to start something new than realize, actually, maybe it doesn't line up with that initial vision of me as the artist. And part of the psychology around that is that when we start, we're just 100% potential. We're filled with this idea that we could be amazing. This could be wonderful. This could be career defining. It could take us to the paths of, on stages or signing books in Waterstones and Piccadilly Circus, whatever that version of that is for you. But the thing is, when we get to the finishing stages, even the middle stages, the reality starts to kick in, and maybe our skills aren't there, or what we dreamt we could be isn't quite that place. I have another video where I talk about the fact that there's often a gap between what we believe we want to produce and what we actually have capacity for. So we've listened to seminal classic albums, and we think that in the small amount of time that we've been working on music that we can get our music to sound that good. That's kind of false hope. And in the same way, if you're writing and you've read tons of amazing books by amazing authors, unless you've put the chops in and continued to work on it, it's still going to take work and practice. And the same thing with photography. You can pick up a camera and point it at something, but by the time you need to learn the skills and learn to get away from the camera and really shoot with your head and your heart and find something that's interesting outside of just what's in the frame. There's a real journey to that, and it takes repetition and it takes chops, But having an unfinished project takes off all of that pressure, and it preserves the dream that we have this potential and we could be this artist that's undefined. Think of I've met somebody who's a songwriter and they've written a couple of songs, but they refuse to go into the studio and record them. They refuse to put them down on tape because they're afraid that they'll lose some spirit but unless they're prepared to stand up and play them in front of everybody. Now, they do gig live, they do play them, but no one can go and listen to them and download them, put them on their playlists, hear them in the car. They're missing out on an opportunity for people to continue to live those and have that song become a story for people's and a soundtrack for people's lives. Or the photographer who's taken all of the photos, they've been out on site, they've maybe worked with models, and they have a bank of photographs, but they refuse to edit them because it takes them closer to the step where they're actually going to have to publish them. Or I actually was talking to a lady who was working on a book, and she just had so many blockages in terms of being able to put that book out there. It was written and illustrated. It looked stunning. It was spectacular, but there was just so many things getting in the way, and she couldn't believe that she had the skills to be that writer, and it was herself that was blocking it, and she made all these excuses to not send it out and not share it with the world. But I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of what actually works. And this is going to take a shift in your mindset, a shift in your approach. And the first one is as simple as it is difficult to achieve. And it's stop trying to create a masterpiece. Just set out to make something and to focus on the next piece, and then let that inform the following piece. So that no single piece is going to be career defining. If you think about any musician that's putting out work right now, they often put out album after album after album after album. And they all flow into each other, and they often speak to each other. Sometimes there's a complete stop and it moves on, but there tends to be, if you're able to go back and listen to the back catalogue of somebody, you can hear the progression through the sounds, through the storytelling, through the songwriting. You can hear that progression through an entire career. And yes, there might be, this is their seminal album, but it's their whole body of work. It's all the things that they engaged in and all the things that captured their spirit that they put out there. When you mention David Bowie, there's no one song or album. It's just his esoteric nature as a musician and an artist that endures. And yes, he has amazing single songs and albums. I'm not saying that's not the case. And the next step you can try is embracing something that's good enough to ship, and that iteration beats perfection. And Seth Godin talks about this a lot in his book, The Practice. And the subtitle of that is actually Shipping Creative Work. And it's just this idea that we have to start something and finish it and put it out there, and start something and finish it and put it out there. He wrote hundreds, if not thousands of blog posts. And he's able to go back and now cherry pick those and bundle them together into a book and sell it. And he's put loads of books out because he's constantly writing, and if something works, let's write another version or that, or let's take that a little bit further, you know. And it's a process, and it's a daily practice for him. And I think part of that whole idea is separating the process from the outcome. So your outcome could be, over years, I want to get to a point where I have an entire body of work. I have this thing that I can put out. But right now, the only thing to work on is that small little piece. And that's really helpful. So a framework that definitely works. And this is 5 points. So you need to start with clarity and understand what done looks like. That's not what perfect is. It's not what's going to be career defining, but what is done on this little piece that you're working on. And then celebrating your micro wins by building momentum, by celebrating small progress and not being like, oh, I can only celebrate when I get here, but actually break it down into steps and go, this plus this plus this plus this all adds up to something, and celebrate those. We talked about the messy middle already. We need to plan for it. We need to expect it, and we need to understand ways in which we can overcome it. So that could be that you are thinking, I know that when I get to this point, it's a struggle, but what do I need to do? What about something to celebrate even in the middle? How can I get there? Is there something else I can work on temporarily while my brain figures this out, or while I skill up to do this? You know, divide your projects out so you're able to conquer. Remember, we're focusing on completion and not perfection, on getting it done and getting it finished. And I promise that these steps will all help. And the fifth and last step is using external accountability. Find somebody that you can be accountable to. Part of what I do as a creative guide is offer that accountability to people as they're working on the projects. But also, you can find that in a collaborator. You can find that in somebody you live and share a passion with, if that's a friend or a partner, or if that's somebody external to that and you need to keep that your relationship the way it is. I totally get that. But find somebody to be accountable, whether that's an online community or somebody in person that you can engage with. You know, don't rely on just your own willpower. Put that out, put that externally. If you say you can have something done by Thursday, have your mate message you and go, hey, you going to send me a photo of it? Or can you share a little bit? So a couple of quick wins that you can implement. It's this idea of the version 1.0 mindset. So every project gets multiple versions. Even if you get to a point, you're still going to iterate on it. You can still improve it. And another thing you can try is celebrating at 80%. Don't wait till it's completely done. Get to a point where you know, hey, this is going to be good enough, but I'm going to keep iterating. That's the point where you go, I start to celebrate. I can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we're nearly there. It's done, but it's not perfect. And that'll just help you to start to see that there's other steps that are then completely perfect and finished. And one other thing you can try is actually having a shipping journal. If you journal, like just have a log of where you're able to kind of sign off your projects as they're done. And then you'll be able to see the progress you're starting to make. And all of those things, the celebration, the shipping journal, and the versions that you're making, they'll all start to add up and build momentum and build this kind of completion muscle for you to be able to get to a point where you're getting that as a normal way of operating. But also remember the other things you do, things you have to do around the house, things you have to do at work where you get your projects done on time, you know, and you're able to ship those. Add those to your success banks of project completion. Don't just limit it to the things that you achieve within the creative realm. Okay, there is one other thing, and that we all work and finish things in a different manner. Over my time talking to creatives, I've realized that there's at least 4 kind of creative finishing types, and I've created an assessment. It's just a quiz on my website. It's 10 multi-choice questions. I promise you it takes no more than 2 minutes to fill it in. And It'll help you to start to understand what type of, are you kind of really quick to start things? Do you finish things quickly? Do you get stuck in the messy middle, or are you an abandoner? Or just a couple other types. And if you would go and fill it in, I'll put the link in the description. You can also find it on my website. There's a little quiz tab. Fill that in, and straight away it'll give you an indication. But what I'll do is I'll look over the results and I'll send you back a personalized video and introduce your finishing type, and also give you a couple of strategies and suggestions like tailored for that finishing type that you can start using today to help you kind of move forward. I'll put a link in the description for Are You a Creative Finisher, and you'll get a result sent back to you straight away. If you fill it in, you find out your type, comment down below. I'd love to get an idea of what more and more people are discovering from this. Okay, thanks for watching this video, and YouTube will suggest another one for you now. Remember, the difference between creatives who finish projects and don't isn't about time or talent. It's usually about them understanding and building systems that they need. Okay, until the next video, stay creative. See you soon.